Somewhere in your TV's menu, there's a setting making every movie look like a cheap soap opera. Another is burning extra electricity to make colors less accurate. These aren't glitches, they're deliberate choices. And turning them off takes 30 seconds, but almost nobody knows they exist. Your brand new TV is lying to you. Right out of the box, it's adding things to your picture that were never supposed to be there. And the worst offender? That innocent-looking sharpness slider. Here's what most people think. Crank up the sharpness, get more detail. Logical, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. That sharpness control isn't revealing hidden detail. It's drawing fake white and black lines around every edge in the image. Your TV is literally playing connect the dots with pixels that don't exist. I noticed this on my own set about 3 years ago. I was watching an old James Bond film, and Daniel Craig looked off, like someone had cut him out of a magazine and glued him onto the background. Cardboard cutout vibes. That's because those artificial edge lines flatten everything. They destroy the natural three-dimensional depth that cinematographers work incredibly hard to create. And it gets worse with classic films. Film grain is supposed to be there. It's part of the artistic texture. But when sharpness is cranked up, that beautiful subtle grain turns into chunky, ugly noise. Casablanca ends up looking like someone shot it through a screen door. Humphrey Bogart deserves better than that. Now here's the really frustrating part. The algorithm behind sharpness enhancement is pretty dumb. It can't tell the difference between actual detail and compression artifacts. So when you're watching YouTube or Netflix, it often grabs onto those little digital glitches and amplifies them. You're making streaming content look worse, not better. Most manufacturers ship TVs with sharpness set to 50 out of 100. Sounds reasonable. Middle of the road. But the zero processing point isn't actually at 50. Samsung's neutral is 0. Sony's is around 50. LG typically sits at 10. Every brand is different, and none of them tell you this clearly. Setting sharpness to the correct neutral value for your specific TV is like cleaning a dirty window. You're not adding anything new. You're just removing the smudges that were blocking your view all along. So find your brand's neutral point. Set it there. Then actually look at your screen. You'll notice faces have natural depth again. Backgrounds blend properly with foregrounds. The whole image just breathes. But sharpness is only adding fake edges. The next setting on our list? It's actively deleting real information from your picture. And your TV does it automatically without ever asking permission. Now, let's talk about something that sounds helpful but is secretly destroying your picture. Noise reduction. Your TV sees film grain and thinks it's a problem. It's not. That grain? Cinematographers spent hours perfecting their lighting to get exactly that texture. And your TV just wipes it away like crumbs off a table. Here's where it gets weird. Watch someone's face with noise reduction cranked up. They look like a wax figure at Madame Tussauds. Pores? Gone. Fine wrinkles? Smoothed into oblivion. That subtle skin texture that makes people look human? Deleted. Everyone starts looking like they've had way too much Botox. Even the 20-year-olds. And the algorithm doesn't discriminate. It can't tell the difference between actual noise and real detail. So it just removes both. A 2019 study found that aggressive noise reduction can wipe out up to 40% of fine texture detail from 4K content. 40%. You bought all those pixels, and your TV is throwing almost half the detail in the garbage. But here's the part that really bugs me. Pause any dark scene with noise reduction on. Then, turn it off. Detail magically reappears. Shadow information you never knew existed just pops back into frame. Your TV wasn't cleaning up garbage. It was deleting actual information from the image. Fast motion makes it even worse. In dim scenes, the processing can't keep up with movement. So you get these ghostly trails following people's heads and hands, like everyone's moving through molasses. Or haunted. Possibly both. Christopher Nolan intentionally leaves grain in his digital masters. Denis Villeneuve does the same thing. These filmmakers want that organic warmth, that texture that makes digital footage feel alive rather than sterile. They make very deliberate creative choices. And then some engineer's algorithm decides it knows better. Bold move, honestly. The irony is thick here. You upgrade to a fancy new TV specifically to see more detail. Then the TV's default settings actively remove detail before it reaches your eyes. It's like buying a sports car and having the dealer secretly install a speed limiter. Why even bother? Turn noise reduction completely off. Not low. Off. Let the image breathe. Let faces look like faces. Let film grain be film grain. Speaking of things your TV does without permission, the next setting actually chops off part of your picture entirely. Remember how I said your TV might be hiding things from you? Well, this next one is literally stealing part of your picture, and you're paying for it. Overscan crops roughly 3 to 5% off every single edge of your image. Do the math on your 65-inch TV. You're actually watching about 62 inches of content. The rest? Gone. Chopped off like the crust on a kid's sandwich. But here's what makes this actually painful. That missing content isn't just black bars or empty space. It's stock tickers on CNBC getting sliced in half. It's the score during football games getting partially amputated. It's subtitles that end mid-sentence because the bottom got cropped. I once watched an entire foreign film missing the last few letters of every subtitle. "I love you" became a running joke in my house. And the TV doesn't just chop the edges off and call it a day. Nope. It zooms in on what's left, then upscales it. It's like making a photocopy of a photocopy. Each step degrades the image. You bought 4K resolution, but you're watching stretched, slightly blurry 3.8K because of a setting from 1953. Why does this even exist? Back in the CRT era, those big boxy televisions couldn't display edges cleanly. The picture would get wobbly and weird near the borders, so engineers just hid it. Cropped the edges. Problem solved. Made total sense at the time. But your modern flat panel displays every single pixel perfectly. Edge to edge. Crystal clear. The setting is now completely, utterly pointless. Like still typing 2 spaces after a period, your English teacher isn't grading this anymore. Here's where it gets worse. Some cable boxes have their own Overscan enabled. On top of your TV's Overscan, double cropping. You could be losing close to 10% of your picture without ever knowing it existed. The fix takes about 30 seconds. Look for settings labeled Just Scan on LG, Screen Fit on Samsung, 1.1 pixel or native on other brands. These tell your TV to display exactly what broadcasters intended, not their interpretation of it. Not a cropped, zoomed, upscaled version. The actual picture. You literally paid for those pixels. Might as well see them. But stolen pixels aren't the only way your TV rewrites reality. The next setting actually invents footage that was never filmed. Here's the thing that drives filmmakers absolutely insane. Your TV is creating footage that doesn't exist. Motion smoothing takes the original 24 frames per second that directors carefully chose, then invents fake frames to shove between them. The algorithm guesses what should appear in those gaps. Guesses. Your television is literally hallucinating new images and presenting them as real. And the result? That $100 million blockbuster suddenly looks like a cheap soap opera shot on a camcorder. The entire cinematic quality vanishes. Gone. Poof. Tom Cruise actually recorded a public video about this in 2018. Him and director Christopher McQuarrie basically begged audiences to disable this setting. These are people who spend years crafting the visual experience of their films, and they felt strongly enough to make a PSA about it. That should tell you something, but why does it look so weird? Movies are shot at 24 frames per second on purpose. That slight motion blur creates a dreamlike quality. It's what separates cinema from reality TV. When your television artificially bumps that to 60 or even 120 frames per second, you're watching something the director never created. I remember the first time I noticed this at a friend's house. We were watching The Dark Knight, and I kept thinking something felt off. It looked like behind-the-scenes footage, like we were watching them film the movie instead of the actual movie. Turns out his motion smoothing was cranked to maximum. Now, here's where it gets technical. During fast camera movements, the algorithm struggles hard. It can't accurately predict where objects should be, so you get this bizarre shimmering effect. Text gets a ghostly outline. Faces develop weird artifacts. The processor is essentially having a breakdown trying to invent reality. Every brand hides this setting under different names. Samsung calls it Auto Motion Plus. LG went with True Motion. Sony uses Motion Flow. Vizio labeled theirs Smooth Motion Effect. Different names, same problem. And before you ask, yes, there are exceptions. Sports actually benefit from motion smoothing because live broadcasts aren't shot at cinematic frame rates. Video games, too. But for any scripted content, it's visual sabotage disguised as an upgrade. The irony is manufacturers think they're improving your experience. Meanwhile, Hollywood directors are recording desperate pleas to stop it. Speaking of manufacturer settings that distort what you're actually seeing, there's one more adjustment that affects literally every color on your screen. Here's the thing about color temperature. Your TV is lying to you about what white actually looks like. Walk into any electronics store, and every television on display has this aggressive blue tint. Whites look almost icy. Snow scenes practically glow. And you think, wow, that picture really pops. But here's what's actually happening. Manufacturers crank the color temperature toward blue because it appears brighter under those brutal fluorescent store lights. It's a sales trick. Nothing more. The problem? You bring that TV home, and suddenly your living room looks like a hospital waiting room. Every single Hollywood mastering suite uses monitors calibrated to something called D65 white point. This standard was established back in 1931, representing natural daylight at 6,500 Kelvin. It's what directors and colorists see when they're finalizing how a movie should look. But most TVs ship with white points around 9,000 to 12,000 Kelvin. That's not a small difference. That's watching every film through an invisible blue filter that nobody in the filmmaking process ever approved. And the weird part is, this affects everything, not just whites. Skin tones turn pale and almost sickly. That gorgeous golden hour sunset in a romance film, now it looks muted and cold. Candlelit dinner scenes feel sterile instead of intimate. I watched The Godfather on a friend's TV once, and the famous wedding sequence looked like it was shot in a freezer. That warm, amber atmosphere Coppola spent weeks perfecting? Gone. The fix takes literally 3 seconds. Find your picture settings and look for color temperature or white balance. Switch from cool or standard to warm or warm to. Yes, it will look yellowish at first. Give it 15 minutes. Your eyes adjust, and suddenly you're seeing what cinematographers actually intended. Professional calibrators charge $300 to $500 to dial in color temperature precisely. But honestly, selecting the warmest preset gets you about 80% of that benefit for free. Snow will actually look white instead of blue. Faces will match real human skin. It's like finally taking off sunglasses you forgot you were wearing. Those 5 settings we've covered today? They're all fixable in under 2 minutes. Your TV already has a gorgeous picture hiding inside it. The manufacturers just buried it under processing that made sense in a showroom but makes 0 sense in your home. Now you know better.